Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, also writing as Jennifer K. Lambert, author of epic fantasy romance, and I'm here with my first cup of coffee, which I've already been drinking. If you're on video, you will see several things. You will see that I'm drinking my venti oat milk latte from Starbucks, and they even have on there Jennifer with a smiley face. And I am in a hotel room because I am here at San Diego Comic-Con. Woohoo! Oh, and also, apologies, say it with me. Today is Friday! Woohoo! July 25th. So you got the wind chime recording off of my phone because I am obviously not at home. Excuse me, but aren't you proud of me for doing a podcast while I'm on the road? I decided I had better get better about doing that. So you probably can't see. I tried to set up the camera view so you could see the view out my window, but it just barely comes in. So alas, alack. Actually, I got it a little bit there, didn't I? If I could get this to turn. Oh well, we won't screw around with it. That would be silly. So anyway, I am at the Hilton Bayfront, being put up in this beautiful room by Tor, my wonderful publisher. Last night I went to the Tor party, which was amazing, and I drank way too much free Prosecco. It is the great peril of the publisher party with free alcohol. It's just I clearly have no self-control. It's sad. It's very sad. But I would be remiss if I did not go back and finish Book Tour, which this is kind of technically an extension of. So I had left our heroine flying to New York City, which sounds very glamorous and dramatic. And I have a confession to make. I don't love New York City. I know I'm supposed to. I know everybody does. It is like my anti-pole, right? That's everything that I love about where I live is the opposite of what New York City is. And I did have a couple of friends who are from New York City giving me advice. So I did, fun things. So let me tell you about it. I flew there on Monday morning and stayed at flew into JFK. Everything went fine on the way in. And then took a lift to my hotel, which was the Moxie, which I liked. Okay, it was all right. It was very hip. It was fun. It was way down in the financial district, though, whereas everything I was going to was way uptown. But, oh well. And the Lyft driver was very apologetic because they were doing all this work on the street in front of the hotel. And so he had to drop me off 2 blocks away at the construction barrier, which was fine, except that I had my bags. So I'm trundling my bags through, one of those city construction zones with the overhead awning and, the made-up sidewalk that with the asphalt ramp that's there temporarily and all of that kind of thing. But I got there fine. I wasn't able to get into my room yet, so I ditched my bags with the desk and went walking around. And the first thing I did was go around the corner and get this Japanese green tea cream puff that a friend recommended, which was very good. But I was feeling a lot of overwhelm, just being all those tall buildings around me and all the noise. I think, people tell me that they get used to the city noise and you don't hear it anymore. But to me, it's just like, brr, brr, brr. And I think, and I had an argument with a friend of mine who is a very practical person, one of the New York people, who I was saying I was feeling a little overwhelmed. And he said, well, just think of it as like a movie, for you to see. And he's not in the least woo-woo like I am. And I said, well, the thing is I feel like there's all this psychic pressure here. There's just the psychic input from so many minds. And he very carefully did not reply to that. But I think it's real. And my friend, Dina Ray, aspiring author, who you will be hearing from no doubt very soon, did and has she's ADD, I think, and maybe a little on the spectrum, and certainly has a son on the spectrum, and is used to managing that kind of thing. And she's like, input is input, and I think that's really true. It's just a lot of input for me. So I took my cream puff and tried to find a place to sit to eat it. I could have gone back to the hotel lobby, and I was very tempted to just hang out in the hotel lobby, which was nice. It's one of those deals where the reception desk is, just in this sort of tiny little room and off of the sidewalk, and then you take elevators up, but then really great bar and lobby, restaurant, lounge space sort of on that. I think it was actually the third floor, but I thought, I'm in New York City and I shouldn't just sit in the hotel lobby. So I took my cream puff and I just sat in a little seating area. It was kind of cool because I walked around a corner and there was like a boat down the block. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm on an island now. I'm not used to seeing boats at the end of the street. And then I was sitting there eating my cream puff, and it's sort of like all these little scattered chair groupings. And a gentleman came and sat nearby, and he was a Hasidic Jew. And I thought, that's the lovely thing about New York City. And I started to feel a little better. And I decided, I was going to walk up to Soho. My New York friend said that there was a hat shop there that I should see, and I should walk up there. So I went back to my hotel to get my bag because it was hot. It was really hot and muggy, and people were complaining. And I had packed my hats for no good reason that morning instead of wearing one on the plane, which I regretted. And I wanted to change my shoes. So but then I was able to check into my room. And so I checked in and I put on my shoes and my hat, and I went walking up to Soho, and that was fun. It was fun to see the things. I had a little bit of a tight turnaround because I had to get back in time to go do dinner and movie with Sarah. But then this funny thing happened was, here I'm all hot and sweaty, and I'm on the block where the hat shop is, and I saw this beautiful French bakery, and it looked so enticing, so gorgeous, that I thought, I should go in. I should go in and have a pastry. So I go in, and I have my hair tucked up under my hat because it's so sweaty. And the woman there is like, oh, you look so beautiful, so sophisticated. And I just like country mouse in the big city, totally ate this up. I think she was sincere, actually, but hard to say. So I told her, I said, I haven't been in. I'm from out of town, which maybe I should not have said. But, what's your best pastry? And so she showed me, there's this one that had like caviar on it and another one. And she said, these two and this one. And I said, okay, I'll just take one of each, right? Because I thought, I'll eat one now. And then I'll, have others for my hotel room, right? Totally normal, like one does. So, and then she says, I would like to give you a complimentary tea. You could have a black tea or a green tea. And then I see the champagne bottle sitting there. And I said, and she said, you sit. And I was like, no, I'm going to get them to go. And she goes, I know, but we prepare them while you wait. I was like, okay. So I said, if I'm going to sit, I might as well have a glass of this lovely sparkling rosé. So I sit down at this adorable little bistro table, and I have my gorgeous glass of sparkling rosé, which was delicious and perfect. And she even says, I was going to give you the tea complimentary. And I was like, I'll pay for the champagne. Well, this should have been one of several clues I should have taken. So then she brings the check over and shows it to me. And it turns out that like the two smaller bun type things, which I don't even know what they were called, you get 3 of them. And she's put them in these gorgeous boxes where they're like on a little tray and stuck down with honey and, beautifully packaged with gold embossing and everything. And she shows me the check and has on there like a 20% tip, right? Which it annoys me if you're supposed to pay 20% tip for counter service, but never mind. The whole thing, people, and I'm telling you this, it was $244. I felt like such a chump, but I also felt like, what could I say no? I mean, maybe I should have just said, oh, no, I changed my mind. But, like they specially prepared them and they were warm. And then she asks me, like, how many friends I'm sharing this with, how many plastic forks I need. And I'm like, 4. Because I still felt like a chump and an idiot. So I have told that story to several people, my New York friend, and then I ended up telling Agent Sarah that story at dinner, who saw this coming, like from the beginning. She was like, oh no, because apparently this is like, I don't know, a New York hazard. And then she made me tell the rest of the agency, but I'll get to that part. So the hat store was a little rich for my blood, especially after I dropped $250 on 7 pastries, which were not even that amazing. I mean, they were fine. They were great. I was just like, I could have spent $20 at Cliff Fluties in Santa Fe and had something much more amazing. Live and learn. Learn from my mistakes, people. So I was thinking, well, it's a good thing Tor was paying for the rest of the trip, because that was, yeah. So no hat shopping. I walked back to the hotel, change clothes, get my lift, and go up to eat at the Glass House Tavern near Times Square with Agent Sarah. And it has started to rain, and everyone was warning me that this big storm's coming. And it was fantastic. I mean, there I am. I felt very glam, going uptown to have dinner with my agent. And she and I sat at a wonderful little two-top on the second floor in front of a glass window. And we watched the torrential rain come down and talked business and gossip and had a lovely time. And the waitress kept saying, are you sure you don't want to stay here with us? And Sarah was like, no, we have a 7:30 show. And so she and I go scurrying. We had an amazing meal, fantastic meal, and Sarah treated me, and it was lovely. And then we went scurrying across Times Square, drenched, completely drenched, and we saw Oh Mary, which was absolutely hysterical. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I kept thinking it was going to get, excuse me, get dumb, and it would like edge right up to the, line of being farcical, but it was always hysterically funny. And I got to see it with, I think, Titus Broadus, and who apparently I was very lucky to get to see that. So it was a lovely evening. The next day, though, I didn't have anything all morning. That was Tuesday, right? Yeah. I actually kind of hid in the hotel lobby, and I worked on my book revision. I had a good breakfast, and I sat there in front of a window, and I worked on this book, and that helped settle me a whole lot more. And I know I mention that often on this podcast, but I think it's worth revisiting and reaffirming to myself that I always feel better if I'm getting my work done. Coming back to the writing is very grounding for me. So then Dina, input person, she came up, took the train up from Baltimore, and she messaged that she had hit town, so she came over and we went and had a slice of pizza and a glass of wine, and then we went and took a lift up to Union Square, where I met the marketing and publishing team and my agent and Sarah Beth Durst for dinner. And wonderful dinner, and Carol Perney presided, and she was like, Tor really wants to celebrate you two, so everybody order anything you want. And we had amazing cocktails. I probably would have had more since I'm bad about drinking on my publisher's time, but I felt like I should be sober for the event that night. So then they took Sarah and I over to the Barnes and Noble on Union Square, which is like 4 stories tall and gorgeous. And turns out it was the mothership. It's the very first Barnes and Noble, which I enjoyed. And everybody there was so amazing. So they had Sarah and I do an Instagram Live. And then we did the event in a big room with the big backdrop, and it was hugely well attended, and we signed all kinds of books. And it was funny, on like the second to last book that I signed, if you've been listening to this whole 3-parter, I probably, I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I forgot my special signing pen, which let me show you. I think I did once already, but this is the beautiful Scrivener pen that my nephew gave me for Christmas. You might not be able to tell the color on video, but it's a dark green, which is my favorite color, and it has ink, and it's you suck the ink up into it, and it's beautiful. And I've been using purple ink. I used it for all those tip-in sheets, and it's I forgot it. And so when I was in Austin, I walked over to the Office Depot, which carried these pens. They didn't have the same one, but they had another one that had an ink cartridge that you put in it. And that night at the Barnes & Noble, my last night of book tour, I ran out of ink. And so one of the publicist gals, they're so nice to me. I'm like, oh, I need to get my purse, because they had locked it in the room where we did the Instagram Live. And she's like, I'll get it for you. And so she goes running off and got it. And I used my backup pen for the last person, second to last person got like half ink and half ballpoint. I was sorry, but that was how it went. So it was an amazing event. It was a gorgeous evening, and everything about it was just perfection. And it was so much fun to get to do that. The next day, I stayed in my room and worked on the book, which was great. And then at about 10:30, Agent Sarah called me, and she said, did you know that you were on the USA Today bestseller list? And I had not known, and the book debuted at number 29. And so that was incredible. And we were doing happy dancing, and I'd already been planning to stop by NYLA, but Nancy Yost Literary Agency, but Sarah said she was going to go buy a bottle of Prosecco. So then I went, took a lift back uptown. That was pretty much all I did in New York, was take rides up and down. And I met Maria Vale, the fantastic Maria Vale, who lives in New York City, for brunch, and Dina Ray joined us. And we had a very fun brunch with Prosecco. There's a theme here, right? And we toasted that. And then I walked over to the agency, and we all toasted to the book success. And Sarah made me tell the dreadful pastry story, which I've now disclosed to all of you. And then I sat and chatted with Sarah for a while, and then I took a ride back to the hotel, got my bags, got my car to JFK. I got all the way to JFK, checked in. It took a long time. It was a madhouse, and it took a long time to get through security. I was there 2 hours before, but I ended up having to wolf my dinner because it was giving me time to board, theoretically. Well, we were delayed on boarding, and then we finally board, and we taxi, and we go out, and we sat on the runway for 2 hours because they said we couldn't get a flight path out because of storms between us and Albuquerque. And they'd had to turn off the engines to save fuel, so it started getting really hot on the plane. And the pilot, I'd never heard this before, the pilot said, if you all are getting too hot, tell me, and I can go back to the gate. We could taxi back to the gate. But if we do that, they will almost certainly cancel the flight, and none of us want that. But you can say so. And so everybody on the plane is like glaring around going, don't you dare say anything about it being hot. But then after like 2 hours, they taxi back to the gate. We have to deplane. They're saying that it's going to depart at like We were supposed to leave at 6:45. By now it's 9. They're saying we're going to leave at 10, then 10:30, then 11. And we are, you know, they're like tearing up the carpet and replacing it in the airport around us. And finally at like 11:30, they canceled the flight. And it was crazy. And so the thing is the next day was Kelly Robson's birthday. And she and I were planning to go on the Georgia O'Keeffe home and studio tour. And she had missed it once, the last time she visited Santa Fe, because she got sick. And so we had to cancel. So I was so determined to get there. So here it is, midnight in New York City. And the flight's been canceled. There's nothing out of JFK. They told us that we would be getting information on rebooking via email in the next 2 to 3 days. So this was JetBlue. Yeah, not doing that again. So, go down to baggage claim, get my bags. Waiting. It took them a long time to bring out the bags, shockingly enough. And I got on the phone with the emergency hours travel agency that Tor uses, and they'd said to call if I had trouble. So I call, and this guy was enormously helpful, and he's like, oh well, you could get a flight out tomorrow afternoon. Nothing from JFK. I could not get out of JFK, so I was going to either have to go to LaGuardia or Newark, no matter what. So he's looking at flights, and we're figuring out what I'm going to do. And I'm thinking, well, I can get a hotel and go sleep and then travel, but we're going to miss the studio tour. And then he says, oh, or I can get you on a 5:30 a.m. flight out of Newark Airport that'll get you into Albuquerque, where I parked my car, at 10 a.m. And our tour was at 1. So I thought, you know what, I can make this. So I book it. And he does, and then I'm looking at the timing, and I'm thinking, okay, by now it's 1 a.m. My flight is at 5:30 from Newark. If I'm going to be there 2 hours before, that's 3:30. It's going to take me half an hour in a rideshare to get to Newark Airport. If I go to a hotel, check in, try to sleep, get up and go, I'm going to sleep for like an hour, right? So I just took a lift directly to Newark Airport, and I had to wait until 3 a.m. for the counter to open to check my bags. And then I went through TSA and had a coffee and a bagel. And the upshot is, and then we connected through Dallas, and I thought, so much could go wrong, but everything went just fine. And I got to Albuquerque, and it took a little while for my bags to come down, but they came down, and I jumped in the car, and I met Kelly by Jinja, if you know Santa Fe. I took the relief route up, met her there, jumped in the car, she was ready to go, and we got there 15 minutes before the tour. And so that's my tale. On Tuesday, I will be in Tucson. I have to go see my mom. But I will tell you all about Comic-Con then. So there we are. We're caught up finally on at least that phase of book tour. So I hope you all are doing well, and I will talk to you all on Tuesday. You all take care, okay? Bye-bye.